On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero. He brought us up to speed on conversations that happened during the application of standard committee meeting, which he made contributions at the ILC conference 2022. He also brought us up to speed on the issues that happened in his union, that is the Nigerian Union of Electricity Employees, whereby they issued an ultimatum to the government and they're expecting the government to yield to their demands, or else there will be total blackout anytime from now in the country. A lot has been happening in the labor sector, especially with the electricity union. Recently, your union issued a 14-day ultimatum. Can you bring us up to speed on why the union needs to embark on an industrial action, as many people have been threatened, or Nigerians have been threatened to experience blackout anytime from now?
Well, the issues surrounding the ultimatum are varied. One, the issue of promotion interview that was conducted some time ago, and refusal of the management to create vacancies and to promote people. And then they have started compiling names for another promotion exam. So you have to clear one before you go into another one. The second one is the issue of stigmatization for people who worked in PSCM before. And then suddenly we got a circular from, they said there was a circular, but not directed to us, from the head of service, that people who worked in PSCM before cannot be employed, in any of the new companies. And we had an agreement, with the federal government, and the office of the head of service had nothing, and I repeat, absolutely nothing to do with PSCN or NEPA then. So we had an agreement, and the government was represented by the office of the secretary to the government, the Minister of Power and the Minister of Labor, where we signed an agreement, and there were transfer instruments transferring the assets and liabilities and staff of PSCN to the new companies, to the extent that people were paid for the number of years they served before, and they were to serve out in the new companies. So on that premise, we now had to ask questions why the head of service could just stay in his or her office and issue statement, and since she was not party to what happened before. And the last one was the issue of second to the last, the issue of new board. They say they set up new board of TCN, and setting a board of people who had no interest in the sector, no stake. Nobody represents the workers, and those people are not shareholders. The BP is there, and then a political board, not people that are selected based on their technical competence, and the interests of the workers are not represented. On the basis of that, we serve them notice. And if they are not addressed, even if with the intervention of the TCM management, because they have called for a meeting either 13th or 14th for us to look at these issues. But even if that is addressed, we may have to take measures to stop the sitting of that board. There will be no board that will meet, and then the stakeholders are not represented. The interests and welfare of the staff in that sector, nobody cares to know about them. So these are some of the issues that are germane, and we need to address them as soon as possible.
Those impacted by the promotional exercise, those that didn't get promoted, that are complaining, are your members. Can you bring us up to speed? What are their agitations? Are they also in for this proposed industrial action, or how disturbed are they?
Well, this is not the issue of, we react based on the promptings from our members. We don't issue ultimatum from the head. Those that were interviewed and not promoted are our members, not the leadership of the union. Those whose interests will be represented at the board, those being employed or those employed and asked to go, that there was a circular from the head of service, are our members. So in these instances, you can watch somebody who's resumed work maybe 2-3 months, and they say no, there was a circular from the head of service, and it wasn't a product of negotiation, it wasn't anything, and the head of service was ill-advised because the head of service was citing the issue of petard, and those who retired under petard, that are being taken care of and collecting their pension for life, are those who worked for 35 years or 60 years of age, and they had left before privatization, not those affected by privatization. Unfortunately, we wrote the office of the head of service, and 2 months, 3 months after, there was no acknowledgement. And that is the insult of the highest order. Such impunity, cannot be displayed under the present democratic dispensation. Then we have to draw whosoever is in that office out, to know whether it is the father's job that an official correspondent will come there based on her own, the crisis she instigated, and she refused to ignore us with ignominy. So, but on that one, the office of the Minister of Labour sent a message across that he is in receipt of our letter and is responding to it, giving it the attention it deserves. Because that office signed the agreement we had with government. So, and we couldn't know where they went and procured a black market circular from the office of the head of service. And we have not been operating under the office of the head of service because we are not even the core civil service. So the discos and the gencos, and they reported the office of the head of service that such a circular should come there. That's abuse of office and privilege, and the fact we gave the office the necessary respect by writing, to seek a clarification of understanding of the circular, and we discovered that it was done in bad faith, and that was why the office didn't respond. So maybe with time, we'll watch the response from the Ministry of Labour as they have acknowledged their letter and say they are giving their attention in this house. We'll watch it before engaging that office further, because we need to engage that office.
Okay, I know that for many organizations, be it private or public, they're always very concerned about hiring the best hands, the best brain, that is those that have lots of experience. So if the civil service is against those that have experience reintegrating into the system, what effect or what implication do you think this would have in the system?
Well, what I saw was that whatever motivated the office of the head of service will come to bear. Because they say that nobody that retired in such areas could be employed again. But the people working in that area worked in that same establishment before. And you say you can't employ new people. And at the point of negotiation, we were clear with them. We told them, pay us, let's go. And they said no. That the sector can't stay a day without people. We said all of us are going. It took a long time. They now said no, it's a continuation of service, but we're going to pay you the ones you have worked before, the number of years now. And on daily basis, people are moving from Ikeja Disco to Eko Disco to Abuja Disco. And suddenly somebody said, nobody from maybe even Eko Disco or Ikeja, whatever, or who has worked before, can work in TCN or whatever. I don't understand where they got there. And that might be why they are not talking to us.
So where does the issue of transfer of service come in? Because I know that it's standard practice for people to do transfer of service. So why are these workers being refused this opportunity or the right to transfer service? Have they committed any illegal action or any illegal offense?
Well, I don't really know. But like I said earlier, our sector, and I repeat, is not under the office of the head of service. The head of service can give such directives to Ministry of Parastatals, that fall under the core civil service, not ours. Because ours is almost, almost private sector.
The International Labour Organization held its 110th meeting recently, and you were part of the committee on the application of standards. Can you bring us up to speed, the reaction, the update from the world of work, especially when it comes to Africa?
Well, the The Committee on the Application of Standards is a very interesting committee, both in law and practice, to the extent that some of the core conventions of the ILO are basically addressed from that committee. It is a period where countries of the world, are brought to account for the activities for the past 1 year. To the extent they breached or complied with some of the conventions which they voluntarily complied with. I will take the Nigeria as a case study, where we looked classically with the case of human minimum wage, because Nigeria ratified the Convention 26 and Convention 95, in 1960 and 1961 on minimum wage and mode of operated the minimum wage. And from 2019, to date, the issues hovering around the implementation of minimum wage has been of concern to the International Labour Organization. And this year again, it came to bear because about 4 states in Nigeria have not, complied with, the implementation of the minimum wage, including, a state like Abia, that are owing workers for almost 18 months, 20 months, and in that order, including Zamfara, that are now implementing the 18,000 minimum wage when 30,000 was, came into force. Why it was 18,000, they were implementing 7,005. So in that order, and these states, what made it interesting in the case of Nigeria was the fact that the federal government actually implemented and even provided funds for the states to implement, and some of the states took the funds for another purpose and never implemented. And then part of the act, on the minimum wage was the issue of enforcement and mode of implementing. So if the federal government can give people funds to pay minimum wage and the people divert it or whatever, and they can't track it, they can't bring the people to book, it brings to question, the essence of now giving money out, whether you are Father Christmas, when that money, the purpose for releasing that money was made clear. And when people default, you can't enforce it. So those are issues, because there is a penalty for non-implementation of the minimum wage. What is a law? If you are a signatory to an international law, you can but implement it. And he was saying that they are not bound. So up to now they have not arrived, and the committee is still waiting for them to arrive for the implementation. There is no African country that civil servants are not unionized. And in the case of Nigeria, that is the oldest union in Nigeria, the Civil Service Union. So they are in breach, of Convention 87. The same thing with the case of Belarus. Belarus is where they are hunting the workers, and the unions. They are not allowing independent unions, to operate in Belarus. As we talk now, about 14 trade unionists are in detention in Belarus. They are even barring them, and they are having even extended torture on some of the people. If they can't get the unionists, they arrest and harass members of his family. They search union offices, search all documents, harass, trade unionists. Some of them, they have sentences, and they insist that they must take permission, from them before they set up a union. So these are clear violations of their fundamental human rights, rights to civil liberties, So many other countries, descended on them I spoke on behalf of the West African sub-region, and then, and we have been calling on the ILO, to give them a special mention, because they had sent a committee to investigate what's happening there, and this Belarus government agreed, that they were going to amend their laws. But from what we are seeing, it appears none of such things have happened. So the application of standards, puts some countries in check, and looks at where they have equally violated the rights of the workers, either in the world of work, their fundamental human rights, or the rights to freely bargain, as social partners in the world of work.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, sure.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.